The private hospital lobby was unusually quiet for a Monday afternoon. Polished silver benches lined the glass-paneled walls, and the low hum of soft music drifted from overhead speakers. A few patients sat scattered, most buried in their phones or half-dozing while waiting for their names to be called. Elena Brooks, a black nurse in her 30s, walked through the lobby in her scrubs, clipboard in one hand, gloves already on. She had just finished assisting with a minor procedure when she was asked to escort a new patient from the entrance. She didn't expect to find an elderly white man alone, pale, and holding his chest like something was squeezing the life out of him. Elena's glossy brown skin shone under the lobby lights, her elegant figure moving with purpose. At 32, she'd spent a decade in this hospital, her glossy brown hands tending to countless patients. Her long braids swayed as she adjusted her scrubs, a badge gleaming with her name, proof of her commitment. She'd worked double shifts, her glossy brown eyes weary but determined, often staying late to comfort a crying child or hold a dying patient's hand. "Soft, you're not alone," she'd whisper, her voice a lifeline. This day, like many, she expected routine, until she saw him. The elderly man, Howard Kent, sat motionless at the bench's edge, his wrinkled hands clutching his chest. His pale skin contrasted with the glossy silver around him, his lips parted in a silent plea. Elena's heart raced, her nurse's instinct kicking in. Concerned, "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, kneeling close, her glossy brown face filled with empathy. He looked at her, his glassy eyes unsure, then groaned, a sound that pierced the quiet lobby. "Elena to triage," she said into her radio, her glossy brown hands steady despite the urgency. "Suspected cardiac event in lobby. Need backup now." She knelt before him, her elegant figure a shield. "My name is Elena. I'm a nurse. Can you hear me?" Howard nodded faintly, his breathing shallow, his glossy white hair damp with sweat. "What's your name?" she pressed, her glossy brown eyes locked on his. "Howard Kent," he whispered, each word a struggle, his pulse erratic under her touch. Reassuring. "Sir, I need you to stay calm. I'm going to help you, but you have to trust me," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a man in a suit, Thomas Crane, watching through the glass doors, his glossy black suit unmoving, his expression cold. She ignored him, focusing on Howard. She slid her bag down, pulling out aspirin and a stethoscope, her glossy brown hands moving with precision. "Can you chew this for me?" she asked. Howard nodded, his trembling hand taking the pill, his chest heaving. "I think it's my heart," he wheezed. Encouraging. "You did the right thing coming here," she replied. "You're safe now." But as she checked his heartbeat, her glossy brown face tightened, his rhythm was dangerously unstable. "Where is my triage backup?" she muttered into her radio, her glossy brown cheeks flushing with frustration. No one came. She considered wheeling him herself, but feared the risk. Determined. "I'm not leaving you," she said, holding his wrist, her elegant figure steady as minutes dragged. Then the call came, code blue. "Backup is delayed. Short-staffed due to administrative transition. Hold position." Her glossy brown eyes narrowed. Budget cuts from the new ownership had slashed staff that morning, a decision she'd overheard in the break room, her glossy brown hands clenching her coffee cup. Howard groaned, sweat pouring, his glossy white hair matted. "I can't," he wheezed. "I can't breathe." "Calm. You're okay, Mr. Kent. Look at me," she urged, her glossy brown face a beacon of hope. "You're going to make it. I promise." Behind the glass, Thomas watched, his glossy black suit a symbol of indifference, arms crossed, doing nothing. The lobby's quiet hum felt mocking, the emotional stakes rising. Finally, paramedics burst in, their glossy uniforms flashing. Elena briefed them rapidly, her glossy brown hands guiding the stretcher. As they wheeled Howard away, he clutched her hand, his glossy white fingers weak. "You're the only one who came," he whispered. "Thank you." She managed a smile, her glossy brown eyes glistening, her elegant figure exhausted but proud. Later, in the staff locker room, the HR notice hit her phone. Immediate termination of contract. Nurse Brooks, due to procedural overstep and unauthorized medical intervention without a supervising physician present, your contract has been terminated, effective immediately. She read it thrice, her glossy brown hands trembling, her reflection in the locker mirror showing a mix of anger and exhaustion. 10 years, gone. Quiet. I saved him, she whispered, her glossy brown face pale, the emotional blow sinking in. The staff locker room was dim, the hum of fluorescent lights a stark contrast to the chaos Elena Brooks had faced. Her glossy brown hands trembled as she reread the HR notice on her phone. Immediate termination of contract. Nurse Brooks, due to procedural overstep. The words burned, her glossy brown face reflected in the locker mirror a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. She'd saved a life, Howard Kent's, and lost her job for it. The emotional weight of 10 years crumbled, her elegant figure slumping onto the bench. The next 3 days were a void. Elena sat in her tiny apartment, her glossy brown skin dulled by the dim light, her long braids unwashed. She stared at her nursing license on the wall, its glossy frame a mocking reminder of her dedication. Quiet. I did the right thing, she whispered, her glossy brown eyes dry from unshed tears. She replayed the lobby scene, Howard's groan, her promise, Thomas Crane's cold stare, her glossy brown cheeks flushing with anger. Bills piled up, her savings dwindling, but pride kept her from calling friends. Defeated. What now? She muttered, her elegant hands clutching a cold coffee mug. She avoided the news, fearing hospital gossip, but the silence was louder. Her glossy brown hands sketched old patient faces, a habit from sleepless nights, each stroke a memory of care. Sad. They took it all, she said, her voice breaking. The phone stayed silent, no calls from colleagues, no apology from HR. Her glossy brown skin felt heavy, the emotional isolation sinking deeper with each hour. On the third morning, the phone rang, shattering the stillness. Elena's glossy brown hands fumbled, her heart racing. A calm, warm voice greeted her. Miss Brooks, this is Catherine, personal assistant to Mr. Howard Kent. He would like to meet with you privately. Transportation will be arranged. Elena froze, her glossy brown eyes widening. Mr. Kent? She asked, her voice shaky. Yes, yes. The man you assisted earlier this week. He asked specifically for you, Catherine replied, her tone steady. Elena's mind spun. Confused, why me? She whispered, staring at the license. She agreed, her glossy brown hands trembling as she hung up. The call sparked hope, her elegant figure straightening. She dressed in her best glossy dress, her medium dark brown skin regaining a faint sheen, unsure what awaited but clinging to the chance. The black sedan arrived, its glossy exterior a stark contrast to her modest life, her glossy brown face reflecting nervous anticipation. An hour later, Elena stepped into Kent Medical Headquarters, the marble hallway gleaming, security greeting her by name. The private elevator hummed, opening to a sunlit office where Howard Kent sat in a wheelchair, his glossy white hair neat, a charcoal suit over his frail frame, a blanket across his knees. His breathing was labored, but his glossy brown eyes were clear, focused. Beside him stood Thomas Crane, his glossy black suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. Elena's glossy brown skin prickled, her elegant hands clasped. Mr. Kent, how are you? She asked, her voice soft. Howard smiled faintly. Alive, thanks to you, he said, his glossy brown hands gesturing her closer. He turned to Thomas. Sharp. She saved my life while half your staff stood still. Then you fired her. Thomas cleared his throat, his glossy brown face paling. Nervous, Mr. Kent, we were in a difficult, angry. I didn't ask for excuses, Howard cut in. I asked for accountability. Howard faced Elena again. You didn't know who I was. That's why I trust you. Because you didn't help me for status. You helped because it was right. Even when it cost you everything. Elena blinked, her glossy brown eyes wet. Honest. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just couldn't let him suffer, she said, her elegant figure trembling with emotion. The room held its breath, the emotional stakes shifting as Thomas shifted uncomfortably. The sunlit office at Kent Medical Headquarters buzzed with tension as Elena Brooks stood before Howard Kent, her glossy brown skin reflecting the light, her elegant hands clasped. Thomas Crane's glossy black suit seemed to shrink under Howard's glare. The moment hung heavy, the story of Elena's sacrifice and Howard's gratitude about to take a new turn. Howard Kent, his glossy white hair neat, leaned forward in his wheelchair, his glossy brown hand sliding a folder across the table. You didn't know who I was. That's why I trust you, he said, his voice warm but firm. Gentle, this is for you. Elena opened it, her glossy brown eyes widening at the proposal. Director of Compassionate Clinical Programs, Kent Medical Group. A salary triple her old one, a budget to build an outreach division, and full authority to rehire and reform staff guided by empathy. Shocked. This can't be real, she whispered, her elegant figure trembling. Howard nodded, his glossy brown eyes soft. We're opening a new wing, putting patients first. It'll be named after the nurse who reminded me what medicine means. He handed her a plaque, its glossy surface reading, the Elena Brooks Center for Compassionate Care. Because saving a life should never cost you yours. Tears welled in her glossy brown eyes, her glossy brown cheeks wet. Emotional. I don't know what to say, she said, her voice breaking. The offer was a lifeline, the emotional weight of her firing lifting slightly. He continued, his glossy brown hands gesturing. I built this empire with numbers, but you gave it heart. Take it, lead it. Elena's glossy brown face glowed with a mix of disbelief and hope, her elegant figure standing taller as the room's tension shifted to possibility. The glossy office walls seemed to reflect her newfound purpose. Thomas Crane shifted, his glossy black suit creasing, his glossy brown face pale. Howard's gaze hardened. Sharp. You stood by while she saved me, then fired her. Submit your resignation immediately, he ordered, his glossy brown hands slamming the table. Thomas opened his mouth, his glossy brown eyes darting. Nervous, Mr. Kent, I was following protocol. Angry. Protocol nearly killed me. Howard cut in, his elegant figure commanding despite the wheelchair. Thomas's glossy brown hands fumbled with his tie, his muscular frame shrinking. Elena watched, her glossy brown skin prickling, her elegant hands gripping the folder. Quiet. He watched me struggle, she murmured, her glossy brown eyes narrowing. Thomas glared but nodded, his glossy black suit a symbol of his fall. He left, the door clicking shut, his glossy brown face a mask of defeat. Howard sighed, his glossy brown hands relaxing. Relieved. One less obstacle, he said, the emotional victory for Elena palpable, the room's atmosphere shifting to justice. Elena sat, the plaque in her glossy brown hands, its weight a mix of honor and responsibility. Crying, I lost everything for that moment, she said, tears streaming down her glossy brown cheeks. Howard reached out, his glossy white fingers gentle. Kind, and you gained more. This is your chance to change things. Her glossy brown eyes met his, her elegant figure shaking with emotion. Determined. I'll make it right, for every patient, every nurse, she vowed, her voice steadying. She thought of her 10 years, late nights, tired feet, the joy of a saved life, her glossy brown skin reflecting the struggle. Reflective. I thought it was over, she admitted, her glossy brown hands tracing the plaque. Howard smiled, his glossy brown face warm. Proud. It's just beginning. The room filled with a soft glow, her glossy brown face lifting as she accepted, the emotional climax drawing viewers into her transformation. The glossy office, once cold, now hummed with hope. Elena stared at it, speechless. Howard added gently, We're opening a new wing in the hospital. one that puts patients first. It will be named after the nurse who reminded me what medicine is really about." He reached over and handed her a plaque. "The Elena Brooks Center for Compassionate Care, because saving a life should never cost you yours." Tears welled in her eyes. The sunlit office at Kent Medical Headquarters glowed with new purpose as Elena Brooks held the plaque. "The Elena Brooks Center for Compassionate Care," her glossy brown hands tracing its glossy surface. Howard Kent's offer had shifted her fate, and now the work began. The story of her rise from sacrifice to leadership was unfolding, pulling viewers into her journey. Elena sat with Howard, his glossy white hair framing a determined face, his glossy brown hands sketching ideas on a glossy tablet. "We need beds, a triage team, and a counseling room," she said, her glossy brown voice steady, her elegant figure leaning in. Howard nodded, his glossy brown eyes bright. "Encouraging, build it your way," he replied, his elegant figure commanding despite the wheelchair. They planned a wing with glossy white walls and vibrant murals, a space where patients' glossy brown skin would feel safe, not neglected. The budget was hers to shape, her glossy brown hands drafting proposals for rehiring nurses, her glossy brown cheeks flushed with excitement. Determined, no more cuts, she vowed, recalling the triage delay. Architects with medium dark brown skin joined, their glossy coats shining as they designed open spaces, the emotional vision of compassion taking form. The glossy office buzzed with hope, the planning a testament to her resolve. The transition wasn't easy. Elena faced resistance, her glossy black scrubs a symbol of her new role. Some staff, their glossy brown faces skeptical, whispered, "Doubtful, she's too soft," their glossy uniforms gleaming with old hierarchy. A senior doctor, his glossy brown skin stern, challenged her. "Critical. You can't run this without experience," he said, his muscular frame imposing. Elena's glossy brown eyes narrowed. "Firm, experience saved Mr. Kent," she retorted, her elegant hands steadying a report. Late nights tested her, her glossy brown hands poring over schedules, her glossy brown cheeks hollow from exhaustion. "Tired? I can do this," she whispered, her elegant figure slumping, then rising. A nurse quit, leaving a note, her glossy brown handwriting bitter, but Elena rehired a young nurse with medium dark brown skin, her glossy brown eyes eager. "Kind. We start fresh," Elena said, the emotional struggle forging her strength, the glossy hospital halls echoing her fight. Word spread, and the community rallied. Patients with glossy brown skin brought flowers, their glossy hands trembling with gratitude. "Grateful. You cared when no one else did," an elderly woman said, her glossy brown face wet. Local nurses, their glossy uniforms shining, volunteered, their glossy brown voices chanting support. "Proud. She's one of us," they said, the glossy hospital lobby filling with warmth. A fundraiser emerged, glossy banners reading support Elena's vision, raised by families with medium dark brown skin, their glossy brown eyes hopeful. Donations poured in, glossy envelopes stacking on Elena's desk, her glossy brown hands sorting them. Moved. "This is for them," she said, tears in her glossy brown eyes. Howard watched, his glossy brown face proud. "Soft, you've inspired them," he noted, the emotional tide lifting her, the glossy community a foundation for the new wing. Months later, the new hospital wing opened to the public. Elena stood beside Howard as children, patients, and staff cheered. News crews recorded her speech as she spoke softly but powerfully. Compassion doesn't come with a paycheck. It comes from seeing someone in pain and saying, "I won't walk away." When the cameras turned off, Howard leaned toward her and said, "I built this empire with numbers. But you gave it heart." The hospital buzzed with anticipation, the new wing's glossy white walls gleaming under soft lights. Elena Brooks stood beside Howard Kent, her glossy brown skin radiant, her elegant figure poised. The Elena Brooks Center for Compassionate Care was ready, the story of her sacrifice and triumph reaching its heart-touching end. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew a crowd, patients with glossy brown skin, nurses in glossy uniforms, and families with medium dark brown faces, their glossy brown eyes shining with hope. Elena, in a glossy white dress, held scissors, her glossy brown hands steady. Howard, his glossy white hair neat, his glossy brown hands on his wheelchair, smiled. "Proud. This is your day," he said, his elegant figure a beacon. The ribbon fell, cheers erupting, the glossy center's murals reflecting the joy. Inside, glossy beds lined the rooms. A triage team with medium dark brown skin moved efficiently, and a counseling room glowed with warmth. Elena toured, her glossy brown cheeks wet with tears. "Moved. This is for them," she whispered, her elegant hands touching a patient's glossy brown hand. The community had built this. Donations, volunteers, love, her glossy brown face a symbol of their effort. On a glossy stage, Elena faced the crowd, news crews with glossy cameras rolling. Her glossy brown eyes scanned the sea of glossy brown faces, her elegant figure strong. "Soft but powerful. Compassion doesn't come with a paycheck," she began, her glossy brown voice steady. "It comes from seeing someone in pain and saying, 'I won't walk away.'" The room hushed, glossy brown hands clapping, some with tears. She paused, her glossy brown cheeks glistening. Reflective. "I lost my job for helping Mr. Kent, but that loss built this," she said, holding up the plaque. "This center is for every nurse who cares, every patient who needs us." The crowd roared, glossy brown voices chanting her name, the emotional peak lifting spirits. Howard nodded, his glossy brown face proud, the glossy stage a testament to her journey. As the cameras turned off, Howard leaned close, his glossy brown hands trembling slightly. "Warm. I built this empire with numbers. But you gave it heart," he said, his glossy white hair catching the light. Elena smiled, her glossy brown eyes wet. "Grateful. And you gave me a purpose," she replied, her elegant figure bending to hug him, the glossy center's glow enveloping them. In the hallway, a framed photo hung, Elena kneeling beside Howard, her glossy brown hands on his, Thomas Crane's indifferent silhouette fading. Patients with glossy brown skin passed, their glossy hands touching the frame, whispering thanks. Elena walked the halls, her glossy brown skin shining, her elegant hands helping a child. "Soft. This is home," she said, tears falling. Moral lesson of the story. True compassion turns loss into legacy, healing both giver and receiver. Elena stood at the window, the glossy city skyline beyond, her glossy brown face reflecting a future of care. Howard's trust had rebuilt her, and now she rebuilt others. The story ended, but her mission, a beacon of hope, lived on. Wow, what an inspiring story. Would you risk it all like Elena? Share your thoughts below, smash that like button, and subscribe to Love Lanine's Drama for more heartfelt tales. Stay tuned.